Welcome to Hope Channel International. This video shares an interesting perspective on the Sabbath and why we should be keeping it.
Now, we're suggesting that really this becomes a focal issue. Why is this so central? Why the Sabbath? I mean, Christians will say, what's the big deal? It's just a day. That can't be a groundbreaking issue.
Here, a few months ago, I was studying, and as I was studying this question of the Sabbath, something just kind of hit me, and that is that God never gave the Sabbath to man.
Okay.
He never did. He says here, like in the commandment here, he says very clearly, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God.
Interesting. So it isn't ours.
No, he kept it for himself. And he talks about my Sabbath. And he talks about this. So it's his Sabbath. He gives you and I the command to keep it. I don't have a right to take something that belongs totally to God and do something else with it. And no more than the same thing with the tithe. Didn't give the tithe is his, and so the Sabbath is God's. And since it is his, I have a responsibility of following.
Well, listen, it's fairly evident that worship is clearly an issue and God's law is clearly an issue. Revelation says again and again, here are the ones who keep God's commandments and here are the ones who worship the beast. The issue seems fairly clear, but really, how does the Sabbath become a big issue? Because everywhere I go, whether it's in Europe or all around the world, I hear a lot of people now saying, it's time for a family day again. And I hear a lot of people saying, well, maybe, we used to have laws that said that everybody gets Sunday off, and so maybe we ought to have Sunday off. So it sounds to me like everybody kind of wants to keep the commandment. So how does that become an issue? I mean, they want to keep Sunday.
They want to keep Sunday, but even in the laws or in the statements they're making, they try to make it clear that this is a family day for the family and all. But it becomes an issue because it says clearly that the beast will speak and cause. And when you have a beast, which represents a power, when you have a beast speaking, that's legislation.
Right, okay.
And
because that symbol in prophecy, a beast is a political power.
That's right. And when it speaks, that means legislation. And when it causes, that means enforcement.
Okay.
And so when this power begins to enforce this, and what they're taking is they're taking something that God never gave and replacing what God gave and making it a requirement for man to keep.
Well, now, I hear a lot, but after all, they are still after a day of worship. I mean, whether they pass it by law or not, I mean, Sunday, why not any day of the week? I mean, why a problem with Sunday?
Problem with Sunday is the fact that God didn't give it. I mean, it's just that simple. God didn't give it as a day of worship. It says, 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work.
Right, so 6 days are clearly for labor.
That's right. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God.
Now, I've heard people say, though, Pastor Cox, one day is as good as another. Come on now, as long as I work 6 and take a 7th.
It is. It's just one day's just as good as the other, as long as you're calling the shots. But if God's calling the shots, that makes it totally different.
Right. So God didn't say a 7th day.
No, he said the seventh day, and he blessed it, and he hallowed it. That makes it totally, completely different.
Right. So the seventh day is different than other days. God did something special with that day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And unfortunately, Sean, at least I have found over there, you have to experience it. You have to experience it to totally understand that. Once you have experienced keeping the Sabbath, then you understand that it's different.